Hello, this is Jamie Magrich. Welcome to Jamie's Craft Table. Today I'd like to show you how I made this card. I'm going to be using Memento ink, Garden Green, Mary Merlot. I have a few punches. I have the sprig punch, the small bloom punch, and the 3/4 inch circle punch. This one's retired, but you could use a different punch as well. For paper or consumables, I have one of our pearlized doilies. I've cut it in half. I have a piece of black, which is 2 1/4 by 3 3/8. I have a scrap of white because I'm going to die cut out this dye with it. I have a scrap of green so I can punch out some of the sprigs. I have a scrap of Mary Merlot so I can stamp and punch out a bunch of the blossoms. I have a piece of white, which is 4 by 5 1/4, and a piece of Mary Merlot, which is 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. And then I have my card base, which is 5 1/2 by 8 1/2, scored and folded at 4 1/4. I'm also going to be using basic rhinestones and the stamp sets. I'm going to be using Buffalo Check, Thoughtful Blooms. I'm just going to be using this stamp here, and this little flower. And then I'm going to be using a sentiment from A Big Thank You, You Are the Best. Okay, and I'm also going to be using my stamp aratus. And that's just so I can get the best impression of the Buffalo Check that I possibly can. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do, just to get things off my desk, I'm going to go ahead and take this die, and this is from Stitch So Painted Labels. Okay, from the Poppy suite. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. I've got that die cut out. Now I'm going to set it on top of this black piece. I'm not going to glue it down yet, and I'm going to bring in my circle punch. You could use the 1/2 inch as well. And I'm just going to bring it in so that I can see the white, and then I'm going to back it off and punch. So I get hopefully about the same, oops, it's not quite straight. About the same corner as what's on the die cut. So line it up, back it off, and punch. See? If they're not perfect, that's okay. Line it up, back it off, and punch. Line it up, back it off, and punch. Okay? So we can set that black piece aside. I'm going to set my doilies aside so I know where they are. This one I'm going to go ahead and stamp the sentiment. Where did I put the sentiment? Well, hold on 1 second. We'll skip that. We'll go to the next step, and I'll find my sentiment. So let's do the Buffalo Check. What I've done is taken 2 strips of cardstock, and I've tacked them down with temporary tape so that I have a triangle or a corner to put my paper in, so I know exactly where the paper has to go in case I need to restamp. And I'm going to bring in my Buffalo Check. I'm going to set that right on top of that where I want it to be. Try to get it straight using the lines on the grid. Pick it up with my door. I'm going to ink it up with the Memento ink. Make sure that paper's in that little corner that I created. I need to ink up this whole thing. I don't know if you can see what I'm doing here. A little bit off screen, but there we go. I know it's not going to get all the edges, but I really want to get a good impression, so ink it up as best I can so I get a nice crisp stamping. And I just re-inked this stamp pad so it's nice and juicy. Okay, I'll go ahead and stamp it. Give it nice, good, even pressure. Okay, it's stuck to my, so I can give it a little bit of a back rub. I'm going to bring in my paper piercing tool just because it happens to be sitting here. Pick that off. It's pretty good. Okay, I'm going to leave it at that. I'm going to bring in a rag. I'm going to clean off my fingers. Clean this off. This is a microfiber cloth. It does a really good job of collecting the ink. And then I just throw it in the washing machine. I like the Stampin' these, but when it has that much ink on it, I want to wipe it off a little bit first. And then I come in with this chamois and clean it off. Okay, and then we'll put this aside. Okay. And I'm going to set this aside to dry because there's quite a bit of ink on there and it needs to dry. Okay, and I'm going to put you on pause and I will be right back. Alright, I found my sentiment. I hadn't taken it out of the case yet. And we're going to bring it back in this piece here, and the black ink. And we're going to stamp that sentiment right in the center of that. Make sure it's inked up well. It's a very solid stamp. Center it and stamp down. I'll let it sit on there for a minute and absorb into the paper. And I'm going to bring in the garden green. Pretty good. The garden green. And I'm going to ink up just 2 of the little sprigs on here. Try to get them inked up well. I'm going to stamp it down here at this bottom corner. Okay, I'm going to turn my piece over because it's a little easier. Do the same thing on this top corner. Okay. Now I'm going to bring in this little teeny tiny flower. Make sure I don't have ink on my fingers. The Mary Merlot. Stamp this little flower. Wherever there's a space where it looks like it should have one. I'm going to add a couple. No one has to go there. I think I'm going to add one up in here. Okay. Oh, I need this still out. Okay, now I'm going to bring in my scrap piece of the Merry Merlot. And I'm going to bring in this stamp here. And I'm going to stamp this. I think I need 7 of them. I need to make sure they're far enough apart that I can get the punch in. So I'll do like that. That should work. Okay, and bring in the punch. And punch those out. I'm going to center that little flower stamp piece right in the center of that punch. Three, 4, 5, 6, 7, and might as well punch out this last one just because. Okay. Now we're going to bring in this scrap piece of garden green, and we're going to punch out 3 sprigs. Okay, and we're going to bring in the snips. We're going to cut one of these in half. And we're going to bring in, I'm going to use the back of my old paper piercing tool, but you can use, you know, like maybe this, that would probably work too. And I'm going to put the flower in my hand, and I'm just going to push on it like that. It gives it a little flower. I like this, it's a little bit smaller. It just gives it just a tiny bit more of a curl, but you can just do it into your your foam mat too. That works just as well. I try not to do it in the center area because sometimes it leaves marks that will show up when you're stamping. But that's what this was made for. Okay, so I think we've got all of our pieces. Let's bring in the diamond, the rhinestones. And I'm going to put one of the medium ones in the center of each one of these flowers. Do it this way because it's sticking to my fingers funny. Come on, 3. Oops, stay put. This other sheet, I need a couple more. Oops. one more. Oops, under the plastic jam, not on top of it. Alright, let's bring in our pieces. Okay, now on the back of the black piece, I'm going to bring in snail, and I'm going to run some snail on the back of the two long sides, and I'm going to put this doily on both sides of that. You can have as much or as little as you want sticking out. I just put it like that. Okay. And this is still damp, so I'm going to go hit it with my heat tool, and I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. Now we can start layering. I'm going to layer this black and white check piece on top of the Mary Merlot. I'm going to use my wet glue for that. Multi-purpose glue. There's just going to be a 1/16 of an inch border because it's just an 1/8 of an inch larger than the Merlot piece. I'm going to go ahead and attach this to the front of my card base. Man, my road's busy today. I don't even have windows open. You'd think I did. Again, it's just going to be an 1/18 of an inch, a little bit larger. Okay. Now this is going to get adhered down here. I want to put glue only in the middle because I want to be able to slide pieces underneath it. So I'll just put glue down the center of this. It's going to go in the center, down a little bit towards the bottom, maybe a 1/2 inch from the bottom or 1 inch from the bottom. Okay, this sentiment piece we're going to pop up on dimensionals. Bring in some dimensionals. Okay, let me try using this pick again and see if I can get those backs off that way. Sort of works, but I'm getting better at it. I think I worked too hard at it. It is nice that it wrangles them, so all you have to do is then put them in the garbage. You don't have them all over your workspace. Oh, that just smeared. Center that on that black piece. See if I can fix it. I want to smear it more. I'm rubbing on it for some reason. This black ink is not drying today. Leave it. Okay, now we're going to take these green sprigs. I'm going to take one of the whole ones and put a little bit of glue on the back of the bottom and tuck it under this top corner. The two that we broke apart, one's going to go on one side of it. The other one's going to go hanging down towards this bottom. Okay. And this other one will go at the bottom, or this bottom corner. Okay, then we're going to attach 3 flowers on each corner and one on this corner. So I'm just going to use wet glue. Little cluster of flowers on that corner. Hold them for a minute so they stay where you want them. Another little cluster down here on this corner. Oops, I don't want to hide my sentiment. And one right over here. There we go. There's a card we just made together. Here's the one I did previously. Well, thank you so much for joining me at Jamie's Craft Table. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I hope you can find a little time to play with some stamps, ink, and paper.